Episode 25. We're back.
We are back. 25.
25. It is now June in Minnesota. Could have fooled me.
Really? Yeah. It's been a little wet and cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, how are things going? You?
Things are good with me. You?
Yeah, good. Yeah, same.
The garden's planted and growing?
Yeah, although the cold's definitely hurting it. It's not doing it any favors, but
Yeah.
it's all right. It's a lot better than last year.
Behind schedule?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And with that, when it gets super cold at night like that, some of the plants don't like that cold.
Yeah.
Like tomatoes and peppers, they like it hot. So,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll still take all of that over the super dry and hot like last year because I just butchered the orchard. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, all's good. Can't complain. You? Everything.
I don't
good?
have a garden, but
Yeah.
the kids are growing.
Good. on pace.
Yep, exactly. Probably some of them ahead of schedule.
Yep,
Yeah. Yeah.
And you had a graduation?
Yes. Yep. Ellen finally graduated. Not finally. I mean, she's on track. It's not like she was behind schedule.
Took a couple tries.
Yep. But 8th grade is in her rearview mirror, and so
Nice.
on to high school. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, of course.
No, we're
course.
super excited about that. She's excited, and so new school and the whole bit next year, and
There
so
it is.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So her energy is kind of cranking up about that, and
Yeah.
her feelings and her attitude and emotions.
Sounds kind of familiar. Maybe like a topic we should discuss today.
I wonder. Yeah. So let's so when the business got started, we talked about these 4 cornerstones, and first and foremost was relationships and the importance of relationships, and then the second one has to do with communication, and we've talked a fair bit about that on the podcast and other places. But that third category, I couldn't figure out at the time, how do you deal with emotions and attitude and feelings?
Yeah.
And so I, just clumped them together and called that energy.
There it is.
Right. And like we like to tell people, and not to be irreverent or insensitive, but when it comes to that whole energy, we really don't care.
Yeah.
Whether it's positive or negative, happy or sad, good or bad emotions or attitude or whatever. It's all pure energy.
Yeah.
And so
I feel like it's more about where you direct that energy, where you funnel it towards, how you contain it and point it in the right direction.
exactly. Yeah.
I was actually just talking, I was on a conference call or a Teams meeting with a client this morning, and that came up, the whole energy thing, and how people wanted a certain thing, right? We'll say social media, like,
oh, really?
The boss wants social media, or is really amped on this or something, and it's like, well, that's great that they want it. They might not know what it takes to get there, or, the strategy behind it, the plan or the cost or the resources needed, whatever, but that energy is there, that passion for it. So it's okay. We got that. It's a lot easier to deal with that than if they don't like it and you're trying to push something through the pipeline. So
exactly. And so I think that, one of the things that we want to hit on today is that, probably the biggest thing is that emotion, those feelings, that attitude, and, feelings a lot of times feelings are a source of our expectations.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit about that conversation that we have with ourselves in our own head, and the way that we're raised sometimes, it affects our feelings. We have certain beliefs and core values and things like that. And then life happens, and something happens and you think, oh my gosh, that doesn't feel good. But the feelings are because of some expectations. And then our attitude, I think a lot of people know, you get to pick your attitude. No matter what happens, no matter how you wake up in the morning, you can pick your attitude. And then the emotions are, did I say that one already? So the emotions are a result of some of those expectations. And so what do you do with that energy? And the opposite of all of that stuff, of the energy, would be apathy. Where people, right? I mean, you just don't care,
and lack of emotion, lack of feeling, The whole, when you were talking about you get to choose, how you respond, or how you get to choose what was the word you used? Choose, when you wake up in the morning, you can choose
your attitude.
Choose your attitude. Yeah. Some of you might be watching this. I mean, it's definitely one of those things that's probably easier said than done. Yeah. But that choice is for sure always there. And sometimes you can choose your attitude, but you can't always choose your feelings. Like, you can't help how you feel on a particular thing. That's something that I hear and see a lot with either business relationships when you're talking, coworkers or leader to employee, or even in personal relationships, right? If you like hurt someone, you might not have meant to set it like that or to say it like that, but you also can't help how they feel.
Right.
Can't help that how they react to the part, because that's up to them. That's how they interpreted it, all that good stuff.
Right.
But you can sure choose the attitude and that's one thing that I've been trying to do a lot. As I get older, I've been trying to choose good.
Yeah. Well, and keeping it real for a second, you and I have had some conversations about the business in the last few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There have been some outside business things. Like I remember calling you, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe about, an event that was going on. Remember that?
Yep.
And,
absolutely.
and you gave me that sage, old, timeless advice that I forget a lot. And that's, if you're going to spend the energy worrying, having feelings, emotions about something, make sure that it's about the stuff that you can control.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, very important.
And I think one of the reasons why we tend to do that as people is because we care, right? We worry about things that we can't control, but it's because we care about the situations of the people involved, or whatever it may be. So sometimes, again, it's another one of those things that's like easier said than done. It's like sometimes you just can't just like let go because you care about what's going on, or it's affecting you a lot, or whatever it may be.
What?
You go ahead.
Well, so I was just thinking about this meeting that I had yesterday. I haven't shared this with you, but one of our clients is law enforcement, and let's face it, no matter what your feelings are as it relates to law enforcement and all of the modern day issues going on with that, and I don't mean any disrespect to the feelings either side, if that's your chosen career, if you're in that line of work, things have changed massively.
Yeah.
The public opinion, funding and a lot of that stuff. And so this conversation that we were having yesterday talked about, they were sharing with me about a shooting that had happened about 10 years ago. And ironically, I had heard from another friend of mine about a similar therapy that was used by law enforcement in Indianapolis, as these folks were telling me here in Minnesota. And there's a therapy called EMDR, and it duplicates the rapid eye movement to get some stuff in the back of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is kind of like our desktop on our computer, and there's lots of things, and there's feelings up there, but back in the back brain, it's called the amygdala, and the amygdala has a bunch of stuff stored. Some of the stuff we purposely put back there, because we didn't want to deal with it, or it was too much pain, or things like that. Some of the stuff got into the storage of the amygdala and we didn't know it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the stuff back there is malware. It's things that have happened. And then when something happens to the front brain and the front brain tries to process this stuff, something gets triggered in the back. And then what we feel, the feelings or the attitude or the emotions, because this front brain is trying to process something that the back brain is holding in it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, this therapy was helping, police officers and other people that have been through trauma release some of those other things, so that front brain can operate more crisply and in real time and not get triggered so much.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. Yeah, that's cool. One of the things that I was going to say when we just a minute ago was, how do you feel in the work? So, right, we were talking about energy today, and one of the things that I immediately thought about is, and this is almost like the equivalent of a transactional conversation, I feel like. So it's very basic, but some people might be thinking, okay, energy, feelings, attitude. What do you do about those coworkers that are just constantly negative energy?
Yeah.
Constantly bad energy, negative, this, that, and the other thing, whether it's a super toxic leader and they're just terrible to be around, or you got a coworker who's very, just bad energy all around. Because I'm a firm believer in that kind of, you what you put out, you get back, karma, the universe, law of attraction, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm all about the energy.
Yeah.
And I think that the law of attraction with energy truly exists. And so if you're constantly around negative people and you say it starts to bring you down. So what do you do when you have that? What do you do when you have, bad energy?
Are you asking me legit right now?
Yeah, sure.
So anytime that comes up, and some people when I say what I'm about to say are like, wow, that's great. That's a really good question or suggestion. And other people are like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me, Steve. So here's what I do is when somebody says somebody else is being negative, right? Then I ask them, well, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
How is it that you're picking up that negativity is hitting your radar right now? Why is that noteworthy, right? So rather than talking about the negativity that's getting sent your way, right, stimulus and response, how is it that you're choosing or picking to respond to that negative stimulus?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because I think, when I think about it, I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's somebody that's on the same team as them. They have a common goal and mutual project. And maybe it's a difficult situation. One's being totally negative and you're trying to be like gung ho about it. Like, okay, that's tough, but solution-based approach.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yep. The other thing so that's number one, I think, is to be very accountable to yourself to say, okay, I'm picking up on that negative stuff. It's like that old story, whatever you're searching for in life, you're going to find.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a pessimist, you're going to find boatloads of reasons to be a pessimist.
Yep.
If you're an eternal optimist, you're going to be, and both ends of the spectrum, right, I think are kind of annoying to most people, right? If you're just always finding the positive and everything, some people will be like, all right, come on, give me a break. But, to be accountable to yourself to say, okay, what's going on with me right now that this is hitting my radar?
Yeah.
Then to practice, right? To get in the habit of choosing a different thought. Or if you can get at the source of why you're picking up on that negativity, sometimes there are some feelings inside you that are sponsored from some experiences that you've had that get at your core values.
Yeah.
And there's that, maybe we've talked about it on this podcast before, but that cognitive development, a lot of our core beliefs are in place by the time we're 18 years old. I mean, it's like 80 or 90% of our core beliefs are locked in, right? That operating software is in place by the time we're 18. Well, I mean, if you're 55 and you haven't examined your operating system and you haven't done an upgrade and you haven't, boy, oh boy, you're running some old software in there. And as life happens, you're getting triggered and triggered and triggered. And you're wondering why do I feel so crappy all the time? Why do I pick up on the negative energy sometimes? So rewriting that software sometimes takes choices on a daily or moment by moment basis.
Yeah. So there's a reason energy is one of the pillars of the business. It's something we talk with a lot of clients about. It tends to always come up, and it very much so comes up in parallel with relationships, communication, commitment, the other pillars and whatnot. Those of you who are watching, if you're a leader or a business owner or you're an employee, anybody who's watching, a salesperson, someone in a leadership role, anybody really.
Yeah.
What would you say the biggest piece of advice to do with energy in that business?
Wow. Well, I think leadership
Loaded question.
Leadership is very emotional. Okay. So, I mean, we talk about, leadership versus management. Leadership is from the front. Management is from the back or the side. Management many times is process, sequence, system oriented. Leadership is more emotional. Just this morning, we were having it was a meeting a remote meeting with a bunch of salespeople, and the topic was handling objections. And so there's the step-by-step process of handling objections. For example, you cushion an objection, and you clarify the objection, you fish out other objections, and then you finally respond. So there's that step-by-step as it relates to the business of handling objections. But one of the big themes that we shared with them was to take the energy out of the objection. Yeah. That the first step in handling an objection is to cushion the objection that just got offered to us, which doesn't feel like an offer. Sometimes it's like, oh no. But to decrease that emotion, because the customer is probably feeling like tension. And so if you can take some of that energy out. So I think with business and leadership, you're constantly managing the throttle.
Yeah.
There are some times where you got to bring more urgent energy, almost that fear and intimidation sometimes without crossing the line. Urgency versus fear. There's other times we got to crank up the positive energy to encourage and to recognize and to be compassionate. And so I think that you have to be skilled at the steps and the academics, the theories of leadership. But I think what truly makes most leaders really effective is they're masters. Like they've got a sixth sense of managing the energy, helping people with their attitudes, controlling the emotion, and dealing with whatever people are feeling individually or collectively in the moment.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's perfect. And that, I don't know. I obviously, I think energy is a very important thing in the workplace. And I think you nailed it right there. So I don't have anything else to add on that.
Well, I just think the other thing that I'd say is, we're talking about the theory and kind of the big time leadership and this, I think this big, sexy stuff. I think there's that quiet energy sometimes, a very humble, firm energy, which you embody. And so I think that there's times where we need just authentic energy, because there's times where I know that, you and I talk about business things, and I've always appreciated, we don't always agree. Some people think that his podcast, you guys ever disagree?
Yeah.
But the energy of being authentic, of being real, that if you really believe in something, sticking to that energy without being too much or over the top.
Yeah.
If there's conflict, when there are disagreements, not to let that energy get away. And so I think that there's a lot of power in knowing who you are, knowing what you believe, and letting that energy kind of reveal itself as you be, sounds stupid to say, as you be your authentic self.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because I think even between you and I, we have a very trusting relationship, and when you have relationships built on trust and good communication, vulnerability, whether it's in your personal life, but for right now in this instance to talk business, you can have those difficult conversations with somebody. You can have the good conversations with somebody, and it can be very even keeler. It can be very, which energy to bring to that, because you know who you're speaking with, and you know those lines of communication, and you don't feel like you're going to go into it with nervous energy or high energy because you don't know how they're going to respond, or you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. But if the other person is open to it, you have that mutually beneficial and vulnerable and trusting relationship, the energy can, it's totally different.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
You bring up the whole aspect of nerves, nervous energy or anxiety or things like that. And again, without being overly redundant, that nervous energy or that anxiety, if it's anxiety, it's coming from something. There's a fear, and you can ask yourself or work with spouse or business partners or team members or whatever, where is that anxiety coming from? What's your expectations? Or something unmet? But that nervous energy, I think about, we were just talking with the other client last week about doing the presentations training.
Yep.
And so, people, there's that old, I think it's a Jerry Seinfeld joke that talks about, the fear of public speaking, those nerves. And, Seinfeld said that public speaking is the number one fear of all people, greater fear than fear of our own death. And then his joke is that with statistics like that, at the funeral, you're better off in the box than doing the eulogy. And so when we do that presentations training, we talk about handling those nerves, that it's not a bad thing to have butterflies. You just want the butterflies flying in formation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think that's a great picture. And maybe just to wrap this up, a great picture of how when you channel the energy that you have, if you're angry, what's going on with that?
Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling misunderstood, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling scared, those are all things that I think could be examined and find out what is the source of that energy. And then if you need to modify what might be divisive, destructive, or distracting energy, if you get at the source, you can change that. But then on the positive side, if there's nerves or enthusiasm or passion or things like that, like you said at the start of this conversation, channel that to desirable outcomes.
Yes.
And then, like we love to say, it doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative, happy or sad.
Yep.
Point that in the right direction, you can make some awesome things happen.
Yeah. I like that kind of thing too, because when you talk about anxiety and nerves, I'm like, whether it's before you're public speaking or whatever, it lets you know you're alive.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think that managing that, there is a lot of energy in the world right now. A lot of things going on, and people feel it. And it just, people speak their mind before they think. And it's kind of, there's a lot of unprocessed feelings. And so I think that, holding on to some of that energy sometimes, just for a minute, just say, okay, where's this coming from? Before we let it go, can really
give yourself some grace with that.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful thing. Energy's good. Those feelings, those emotions, the attitude we pick, so powerful. It's so real and meaningful. And so rather than feeling bad or misunderstood about it, we just wanted to jump on and say, know the sources, learn how to make some different choices, and use that positive or negative energy to your benefit.
That's right. Yeah. Energy, episode 25.
In the books.
Thank you again, Steve.
Thanks. Thank you.
See you guys.
See ya.